everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. I'll be your astrologer this week. Happy Thursday. I hope your guys' week is going well. Back at it with another video, and it is that time again. We are going to be doing the Zodiac profile for the sign Capricorn. So if you like my content, you want to see more of it, click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Consider sharing it with other astrology enthusiasts, and leave me a comment below and let me know what planets do you have in Capricorn or in the 10th house, and how do you relate to some of this information. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and any interaction with the video is super beneficial for getting this content out to other people on YouTube. Now, if you guys have been following me throughout this last year, we started with Aries, and now we have worked our way into Capricorn season. We've got Sun in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, some Saturn conjunctions that are setting up. So what a great time to reflect on this sign. So if you guys want to learn how to practice astrology, if you want to learn how to read your own horoscope, or if you want to learn more about transits and prediction methods, I teach astrology. Check out my website in the description below at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I've got an Astro 101 course for beginners, over 18 hours of course study at your own pace, and also an Astro 201 if you want to learn predictive methods. I'd love to teach you astrology in 2025, and you guys should check that out. Now, that being said, I've been creating this series to give us a little bit more insight on each and every one of the zodiac signs. Each month when the sun is in that sign, I do a profile and I talk about the connections to that sign, the house that it rules, its ruling planet, and much, much more. So even if you're like, I'm not a Capricorn, I don't have a Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, if you have any planets in Capricorn or anything in the 10th house, this video is for you. So stay tuned. I'll have lots of information for you guys throughout this video. But a general kind of rundown is what we're going to do today. So we'll jump right on into it, and we're going to start by talking about Capricorn. So when the sun is in the sign of Capricorn, this is generally between December 22nd and December 22nd and January 19th every year. And as many of you guys know, Capricorn is the goat. And we also sometimes see it as the sea goat, and we'll talk about that as well, but it's known as the goat. Essentially, Capricorn is an earth element. It's considered cardinal. So not only is it grounded, but it takes action. And this is a sign that is ruled by the planet Saturn. Now, Capricorn has connections and associations with the 10th house. So it's going to cover themes like your career, your public image, or your social status. And it is a feminine sign, so it's considered yin. And the colors that are associated with Capricorn are black, gray, brown, and dark green. And if you are a rock hound, the stones that are connected with Capricorn would be garnet, onyx, and black tourmaline. Obviously, there's a whole laundry list of stones, but those are the ones that I kind of correlate with this sign. Now, when we think about the mythological connection to Capricorn in the zodiac, this is an interesting one. So Capricorn has associations with the Greek myth, the god Pan, who is known for his wild and playful and kind of lustful nature. But in one version of the myth, during the battles between gods and the monster Typhon, Pan tried to escape by running into the Nile River, and he got stuck, but managed to transform his lower body into a fish, while his upper half remained a goat. So this hybrid creature was later placed in the sky by Zeus in the constellation of Capricornus. And the myth symbolizes the transition or transformation from animalistic to divine, embodying the climb from the base instincts to the spiritual or intellectual insights. So that's why we see that Capricorn can be seen as the sea goat. And Capricorn has its connections and its association with Saturn, okay? So Saturn traditionally rules Capricorn. It also has a traditional association with Aquarius. But Capricorn's a little bit different because it's an earth element. So Saturn's connection here deals with discipline and structure, responsibility, as well as time. And it aligns perfectly with Capricorn's characteristics. They're all about ambition and hard work and slow and steady climb to the top to be able to get their success. And Saturn's lessons often deal with, limitations and maturity, perseverance, pushing through until we kind of get to where we're hoping to go, especially when it comes to our 10th house kind of career goals. So the association really reflects also Capricorn's need for structure and their respect for authority and focusing on their long-term achievements. Now, when we think about Capricorn in a nutshell, some of the personality traits that we see from this sign is definitely ambitious, okay? This is a very ambitious sign. They have a strong drive to achieve their goals and climb that ladder of success, and they will not stop until they get there, even if it takes forever. They're also known, with help from Saturn, to be very disciplined. So they exhibit a great deal of self-control in their ability to work towards their objectives and meet their timelines always. But in order to be successful, we know that discipline is necessary to be able to kind of see things through. They are also known for being responsible. So Capricorn placements take their duties seriously, and they have a tendency to be very reliable. And because they're an earth sign, they're often very pragmatic. They're very practical in their approach, and they focus on what works and what feels good and what's going to produce the best results. And that requires them to be patient. They understand that success often comes with time, and they're willing to wait for the right moment to be able to kind of strike. They do have to be organized. I feel like this is one of the themes that you see with all of the earth signs, but Capricorns, they thrive in environments where everything has its place and time. And they definitely have a huge focus on respect for authority. So they generally, respect and adhere to, hierarchical structures, as well as bosses, leaders, elders. Capricorn has to deal with these groups of people. Now, one of the challenges that we see with Capricorn, though, that can definitely come up is they are sometimes known for having a bit of like a pessimistic nature. I have 4 planets in Capricorn, so I would say it's more being a realist, but we can kind of have a pessimistic kind of tendency. We can focus too much on potential problems rather than opportunities. Capricorn is also, due to the connection to Saturn, known for sometimes being stubborn. So their determination can make them a little bit rigid and oftentimes resistant to change. There is a tendency also with Capricorn energies to be overly serious, and sometimes they may lack like that playfulness, or they struggle with being lighthearted, and they can take life too seriously. Capricorn placements can also be seen as being very cynical because of their realistic outlook, and sometimes they come across as like overly critical. Capricorn placements are also known for being workaholics, so their dedication to their goals can lead to neglecting personal life or health-related matters. And believe it or not, Capricorn placements can oftentimes be very shy or reserved. And I connect this to, them being seen as kind of like distant or unapproachable, especially in social situations where they might, prefer to kind of maintain a professional demeanor or kind of keep to themselves. But not a lot of people would know that, but Capricorn placements have a tendency to be a little bit shy. Now, I love playing the sun, moon, and rising game. You guys have heard me talk about this in previous videos, telling the difference between the sun, moon, and rising sign. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the differences and how to be able to spot them, and how these combinations might behave very differently and express the Capricorn energy. For a Capricorn sun, obviously, when I think about the physical characteristics, all the sun, moon, and rising will have similarities, but I have found that Capricorn suns have a very strong kind of sturdy build, and it reflects like this very kind of, I guess I would say like enduring nature that they have, or like this kind of like authority, kind of person out in the world. They'll radiate that out with the sun. And I've seen that they also have prominent bones, particularly knees, which relate to Capricorn's association with Saturn and the knees. And Capricorn suns tend to dress a little bit more conservatively, or in a manner that kind of like exudes professionalism. Collars, button downs, things that can be kind of like more like their uniform. I have found Capricorn placements have a tendency to kind of have like a uniform that they will wear. Even if it's not like an actual uniform, they'll have like a set of shirts and, pants and socks and jackets, and everything will have this kind of like uniform look to it. And they dress a little bit more conservatively. And generally, I find that Capricorn placements in general choose darker colors. And so they're going to be more neutral colors. So things that are going to be like more black, gray, kind of navy is what they gravitate towards. And their mannerisms, they can kind of carry themselves with like this sense of purpose, and they definitely have this kind of like authority figure vibe, especially because the sun kind of connects to their ego and their identity as well as their work. And they generally have like more of like a thoughtful or like a serious kind of expression on their face. And there's like this air of like maturity and wisdom that they have, even if it's like beyond their years. So if they're younger, they'll still kind of carry that mannerism with them. Emotionally, they can be reserved. They keep their feelings generally under control, pretty cool, calm, and collected. I find that they value stability and they're very goal-oriented. And sometimes that can make them come across a little like emotionally detached. Some people will see that from Capricorn suns. And they generally have a strong sense of responsibility and prioritize these over emotional needs. So this is not the most emotional sign. Obviously, the chart's made up of a bunch of different placements, but I don't oftentimes see that from Capricorn placements in general. And then with the Capricorn moon, so this is the subconscious, the emotional body, usually what's a little bit more private. For physical characteristics for Capricorn moon, they may not show the characteristics as much as a Capricorn sun, but they still have a very structured, disciplined way of kind of moving, especially like dealing with things emotionally. You're going to see it more in emotions in home and family rather than through like the sun, which is going to be more obvious. And with their appearance, they may reflect emotionally this inner seriousness, and they opt for practical over anything that's going to be kind of wild. And they also tend to be more introspective, I have found, the Capricorn moons, and their mannerisms might reflect more of like a private, reflective nature. I do find that Capricorn moons have a tendency or a habit of like frowning, or they can kind of have like a little bit more of like a stern look on their face, even when they're not upset. It's just like their kind of go-to state. And emotionally, right, we think of the moon as that connection to like mothers and our roots and our family. They can come from working mothers. Like they can have moms that were a little bit more stern and serious with them. So, as a result, we might see like internally, they're very, quite conservative and like quiet about their emotions. And they process their feelings through their duties or their work, or they may feel responsible for their home or their family, or they may work from home. That's another theme that we see with Capricorn moons. I find that they really crave structure in their home life, and this can make them cautious about opening up and being emotionally vulnerable or making changes with their home. And, they are also known for sometimes being a little bit more emotionally detached. It's still a feminine sign, so they're sensitive, but you may not actually see those range of emotions on their face with a Capricorn moon. Now, the Capricorn rising, on the other hand, this is something that I can generally spot. I think one thing is Capricorn risings, I have found they'll have like pointed ears. I know that sounds weird, but they'll almost have like a bit of like a point to their ears. So it kind of like resembles what you would see like with like a goat. I also have found that it doesn't matter how old they are. If they're younger, they will tend to kind of show signs of aging on their face a little bit more. Or they'll maybe wear things that are a little bit more traditional, or it may be something that connects to like a different time period. So they might dress like a little bit more retro, or they may be a little bit more particular about how they're, grooming themselves, and they may have like a more like traditional kind of like haircut or style. Capricorn risings have great bone structure. That's the one thing I love about them, particularly in the face. You'll see high cheekbones and a prominent jawline. And, the appearance of a Capricorn rising, they actually age very well. They will look younger when they're older, but when they're younger, they can act and carry themselves and act a little bit more mature. And also they can be a little grumpy in the morning. Sometimes I've noticed that, whether it's like Capricorn rising or Capricorn moon, sometimes Saturn in the first house can kind of give that vibe as well. And obviously their appearance, they have this air about them that's very mature and very serious, but I feel like they carry themselves, whether that's in their demeanor or in how they dress, in a way that commands respect. And it's very classic, kind of like timeless attire. I do like about Capricorn risings that they have this like aura of like control and composure, and like they seem really cool, calm, and collected. And I find that their movements are very deliberate and measured, and they take like a more cautious approach to life. And while they don't show their emotions as much as other signs, you know, Capricorn risings can actually be deeply sensitive. All Capricorn placements can, but Capricorn risings, I think especially, can be very sensitive and take criticism to heart. And they kind of move through life with this very like strategic mindset. So it influences how they react emotionally, and oftentimes that's with restraint. And their emotional expression is always like filtered through a lens of like practicality and responsibility. So they're always kind of holding themselves to like this high standard when they do things, and they think about how it would reflect who they are as a person. And it really kind of, yeah, impacts how they move throughout the world. So the key differences essentially with the three is that the Capricorn sun is more about the core identity, the drive and the ego, and that connection to ambition and discipline and their long-term goals, right? Emotional life is like second to their achievements. But a Capricorn moon deals more with their inner emotional world and how they feel and how they need to feel secure. So they might seek emotional stability through accomplishments or status, often suppressing more vulnerable emotions. Versus a Capricorn rising, where they're going to be really focusing on making a good initial impression. They have a really strong physical demeanor, and the way that they kind of come across is a little bit more reserved or serious than they feel on the inside. And they like to kind of project or present a very controlled, you know, kind of person to the world. Now, all signs have connections to different body parts, and the part of the body that's associated with Capricorn is the skeleton, the knees, the skin, and the teeth. Capricorn is associated with the bones, right? So when we think about like Capricorn rising, Capricorn placements, maybe even like Capricorn on the 6th house cusp. So this would be for my Leo risings. Health issues that you want to watch for, number one is bone health. Whether it's like arthritis or osteoporosis, joint stiffness, but especially in the knees is where I see this with Capricorn placements, as well as skin conditions. So like dryness or rashes, sometimes skin aging prematurely, that can definitely be a theme as well. Sometimes we also see dental issues or dental problems like tooth decay or issues with structure of the teeth due to poor bone health, and general fatigue from overworking and not allowing enough time or rest and relaxation. Now, because Capricorn is associated with Saturn, sometimes we see issues with Capricorn placements where there's depression or anxiety, and this can be due to the pressure they put on themselves to succeed or from a lack of emotional expression. Some health tips for Capricorn placements obviously would be regular exercise, and focus on exercise that's going to strengthen the bones and the joints, like weight-bearing activities or yoga or flexibility. Light weightlifting, hiking, and resistance training can be really helpful as you're aging and help you kind of avoid some of these bone issues. And definitely keep an eye on bone density. That's really important as well. Now, Capricorn placements need a balanced diet, as do all signs, but this sign really needs calcium-rich foods. So you know, anything that's going to promote bone health, so like vitamin D for absorption, hydration, and good fats for skin health is going to be really important as well. Make sure that you get adequate rest. Make sure you schedule downtime. You know, Capricorns need to be reminded to rest as much as they work. So they can be kind of super busy all of the time and oftentimes forget to rest, take a break, to eat lunch. And this is something that can really create a lot of issues with stress. And for stress management, you know, anything that's going to really allow them to have better emotional expression, anything like journaling, therapy, or art can really help kind of counter the tendency to bottle up emotions. And then obviously make sure you get your regular checkups, especially for your bones and your teeth, to catch any of these issues that may be cropping up early. Now, in terms of astrology, we think of like signs and their connection and correlation with a planet. So we talked about how Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, and that's because Saturn is all about structure. Saturn, you know, like really governs all forms of structure, discipline, and also limitation. But it's also about the boundaries that we set, the laws that we follow, and the responsibilities that we take on. Saturn has connections to things like time. So, we think of Father Time, or if you think of like even the Grim Reaper, right? And the scythe that he has. Saturn represents the passage of time, aging, and the lessons that we have learned over time. It's also connected to karma. Saturn is a planet that is associated with karmic lessons, the consequences of our actions, and the need for accountability, as well as authority, like authority figures, government, any structures where we respect elders and tradition. That is strongly tied to Saturn, as well as Capricorn, and also our career, reputation, and our public standing or status out in the world. Now, certain planets perform better in certain signs. In terms of like the planetary dignities and the connection to Capricorn, obviously Saturn is the ruler. So Saturn in Capricorn is considered its domicile. This is where Saturn is the strongest, expressing its nature of discipline, responsibility, and limitation most powerfully. Mars is also exalted in this sign. So Mars in Capricorn is incredibly strong. Maybe not traditionally considered exalted in Capricorn, but in terms of modern astrology, we tend to look at Mars really channeling this energy into constructive discipline action. And as for the planets that are in detriment or fall, so this is when planets are moving through this sign and they are going to be in the opposite sign. So the moon is considered in its detriment in Capricorn because it's the opposite of its domicile in Cancer. And the moon moving through Capricorn, it has this emotional restraint. Like there's clashes with the moon's need for emotional expression and nurturing. So it can have a difficult time when it comes to home, family, or even communications and expressions of its emotions, its feelings. And then Jupiter is in its fall in Capricorn because it's in the opposite sign of its exaltation, Cancer. So Jupiter is considered to be in its fall here. Although Jupiter is a positive planet, it's expansive and optimistic in nature. Because Jupiter placed in Capricorn is like restricted by Capricorn's kind of conservative, cautious approach, it can kind of dampen the enthusiasm of Jupiter in this sign. Now, maybe you aren't a sun, moon, or rising in Capricorn, but it is possible that you have other planets there. So what I'd like to do is talk to you guys briefly about planets in Capricorn, and then we're going to talk about planets in the 10th house, as well as Saturn through the houses. That way we can get a little bit more context. So just wrapping on planets in Capricorn, I mean, we talked about the sun in Capricorn and how this is a personality that's very driven by ambition, discipline, and desire for achievement. These individuals are seen as leaders. They value structure and hard work as well as long-term success, and they tend to build a solid foundation in their lives, focusing on their career or reputation. That's where their sun is. So as an example, someone with like a sun in Capricorn might be known for their success, perhaps as a CEO, or someone who rose through the ranks by sheer determination and strategic planning. And they're the type who starts working on their next goal before the current one is achieved. But the Capricorn moon emotionally is reserved. They value stability and security, and they might express emotions through actions rather than words. So they deal with their feelings through work or responsibility, and they need to feel productive and useful to feel secure. So a Capricorn moon individual might cope with a personal loss or stress by throwing themselves into work. This is something that I see all the time with Capricorn moons. Sometimes they find emotional security in their professional achievements through taking on more responsibilities. I've also seen people who work from home. They work for a family business maybe, or people who like work in property or real estate management. That's kind of common with that moon. And then the Mercury in Capricorn placement. So we're taking the planet of communication, ideas, travel, business, and we're putting it in a sign where it's going to want to talk about, think about, and strategize those things. Very strong placement for somebody who's great with business negotiations or business management. This is really bringing a more practical approach to communication. Generally, their ideas are clear, they're concise, and they focus on what's feasible and beneficial in the long run. And there's a preference for well thought out plans rather than spontaneous ideas. So like as an example, a natal Mercury and Capricorn person might excel in roles that require detailed reports, strategic communication, or negotiations where long-term benefits are discussed, like corporate strategy or even law. Now, if you have Venus in Capricorn, you're taking the planet of love and relationships and resources and putting it in this sign. So obviously Venus in Capricorn can have a bit of a reputation for being a little frosty. Love and relationships for Venus in Capricorn are approached with like a sense of duty, loyalty, and desire for lasting partnerships. So they value stability and might show affection through practical means by ensuring a secure future together. Venus and Capricorn are notorious for being like, okay, we're together. What are we building together? What do we bring to the table? And sometimes they'll approach relationships almost like a business relationship. And as an example, someone with Venus in Capricorn might propose marriage after ensuring they have a stable job or a clear career path for their life together, valuing commitment over romance. So there is this sense of practical steps in relationships, being cautious, maybe taking their time, being selective, being choosy, and choosing a partner that they feel like they can kind of build a future with. Versus Mars in Capricorn, so you have the planet of like action and passion and combativeness moving through a Saturnian sign. So, they're going to channel their energies into long-term goals. This is why I think I would consider Mars exalted here, using their ambition and perseverance to overcome obstacles, very driven, very disciplined, and, they work systematically towards their objective. And so often they do it with like a very cool, calm, collected mindset. You don't see like that aggressiveness sometimes that you see with other Mars placements. They are very competitive though, especially in the professional zone. So you will definitely see that. And this could be a person who just like meticulously plans their fitness regimen, sticking with discipline, with routine, gradually achieving, peak physical condition through consistency and all of their hard work and effort finally paying off. I've definitely seen that for a lot of people. I've seen that people who work in like the fitness industry. I've seen that for people who also, also work in like medical and health stuff. Mars and Capricorn, especially working with the skin, the teeth, and the bones. I've seen some of those placements as well. Now, if you've got Jupiter in Capricorn, this means that you have the planet of abundance and expansion and philosophy and good luck generally, in this sign. So it's going to expand, because that's what Jupiter does, structure and discipline. So it'll often, give you some kind of positive something, some kind of growth that'll come through hard work and responsibility and achievement. So you got to earn it. It may not come as easy as some of the other signs. Success here really comes from building something lasting, often in the public or professional sphere. As an example, a person might expand their influence in their industry by taking on leadership roles, perhaps founding a company that grows to be respected and influential due to its solid business practices. Now, if you have Saturn in Capricorn, you have Saturn in its home sign. So obviously this is a strong placement. It signifies a strong focus on responsibility, maturity, and discipline. Individuals here might face significant lessons revolving around ambition, authority, and passage of time. Saturn here is in its own sign, so it makes these lessons particularly profound. As an example, someone with Saturn in Capricorn might take on challenging roles that require them to restructure a failing business, learning through the process about leadership, patience, and the importance of enduring hard work. But if you have Uranus in Capricorn, this is the planet of unconventional, shaking things up, unexpected changes. Uranus in Capricorn brings about a revolutionary change within traditional structures. So it's interesting when we think about the connection of Saturn to both Capricorn and Aquarius, and then you've got Uranus in a Saturn sign. So it's a little backwards in my opinion, but I've got this placement. So this often leads to innovation in government, business, or societal norms. And there's this push for modernization generally with Uranus. So it's going to modernize what is considered to be conservative frameworks. So this could manifest for someone as someone who invests in new management philosophy that disrupts traditional corporate structures while still valuing accountability and results. Now, if you have Neptune in Capricorn, this means that you're taking the planet of illusions, fantasy, maybe even creativity, spirituality, and it's putting it in Capricorn. So here, Neptune and Capricorn might dissolve traditional structures to reveal spiritual truths, and it can also lead to confusion or disillusionment with conventional success. Now, there's often a struggle between idealism and, being like more pragmatic with this placement. It's really similar to like a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. I think it can bring structure with Capricorn to our dreams. It can allow us to excel also in Neptunian themes. So it can be spiritual practices, it could be religious practices, it could be nonprofit, it could be film, art, music, that kind of stuff. And as an example, like an artist with this placement with Neptune and Capricorn might focus on themes of corporate greed or the soul of capitalism and using their art to critique or transform society structures. And then finally, the most recent Pluto transit that we've had, I think it started back in 2008, Pluto in Capricorn. So that actually just concluded and completed in this last year. Pluto in Capricorn is all about transforming through power, right? So power and authority figures is Capricorn. And also institutions, and it brings deep changes in government, corporations, as well as personal ambition, often through crisis or power struggles. So as an example, somebody with Pluto in Capricorn might be involved in a major corporate overhaul, perhaps leading to a company's rebirth or exposing corruption and fundamentally changing how business is conducted. Now, what if you have one of your nodes in Capricorn, like your north or your south node? This is important because you're going to want to look at, obviously it's going to be expressed through the lens of Capricorn, but you want to look at what house it's in, and you want to look at where your natal Saturn placement is, and that's going to give you some insight about your north or south node. But the north node in Capricorn, so this means that, in this incarnation, you're really focusing on life lessons centered around Capricorn themes. So it's going to be responsibility, maturity, building a legacy, that kind of stuff. And individuals are encouraged to develop discipline, ambition, and a strong work ethic. With this placement, you have to learn to achieve personal success through hard work, patience, and by taking on leadership roles or public responsibilities. So it's oftentimes when you have this, it's signifying a journey from more of a carefree, or chaotic life path, South Node in Cancer, towards something that's more structured and goal-oriented and focusing on your future and your success, right, Capricorn? So somebody who has the North Node in Capricorn, they might start their life with more of a focus on home and family with the South Node in Cancer, or staying home or not leaving their hometown, or having a family early, or staying, living with their parents. But with that North Node, they find fulfillment by stepping into the public eye. And this could be perhaps through, becoming a respected figure in their field, or becoming dedicated to their career and their achievements. But if you have the South Node in Capricorn, it's the opposite of that. It basically means that that's what you're coming from, because the South Node indicates your past life or your early life tendencies, being overly focused on career status and material success, sometimes at the expense of your emotional well-being, personal relationships, or inner peace. So the challenge here is to integrate and balance, this tendency to just focus wholeheartedly on work and ambitions in career, to nurturing, intuitive qualities connected to that North Node in Cancer, maybe building a family, having a home, being more private, and learning more about emotional connections in your home life. So if you're somebody who has this, you might kind of feel like, okay, in my youth, I was very career driven. I sacrificed my personal life for professional success. And then over time, true fulfillment comes from nurturing relationships, caring for others, or creating a loving home environment. Now, like we said, Capricorn is associated with the 10th house in astrology. And this is about your public reputation and your career, but this is also our public face. This is our ambitions, how we achieve recognition and status in society. So it's really connecting to Capricorn's tendency to want to kind of climb up the mountain and get to the top, even if it takes forever, climbing that ladder and, moving through perseverance and taking on responsibilities that enhance their public image or their authority. Now, themes that come from the 10th house are not just your career and your profession. Yes, this is the one thing you're going to hear about Capricorn, but it's also your reputation. The 10th house is about how you're perceived by other people and the reputation you have in your community and the legacy that we leave behind. It is about authority and leadership. It does show our relationship with authority and our leadership qualities, or how we might become an authority figure in our own right. but it's also a major connection to our personal achievements. The 10th house is where we see the achievements that we aim for, often long-term goals that require dedication and hard work. It also can have a connection or association with father or parental figures. You know, traditionally the house can reflect the relationship with their father or significant parental figure who have shaped their view on authority and success. So some astrologers differ in their opinion. I have seen, you know, mother or father kind of take on the role of the 10th house depending on the client's chart. But definitely people that are authority figures in our life that, you know, kind of like guide us, that we look up to, is definitely connected to the 10th house. And it's also very much kind of connected to our accomplishments. So not just recognition in our career, but what we ultimately end up accomplishing and kind of getting done in our life. So it goes without being said, planets in the 10th house, because we think about the MC as like the tip-top part of the chart, it's the most visible. If you have planets that are in conjunction to the MC in the 10th house, they're very visible, and it's going to play a huge role in kind of shaping your career. So just having Capricorn in the 10th house isn't enough. Having a planet there might bring a little bit more oomph. And even if you don't have planets in Capricorn, having a stellium in the 10th house or having planets conjunct your MC, you're going to take on some of those kind of characteristics and personality traits of Capricorns. So the sun in the 10th house, very similar, can be different, but very similar to having your sun in Capricorn. Here, there is a really strong need. The ego needs, or the identity is tied to recognition and success and achievement in your professional life. So these people are very driven by career. They shine. They can be in the public eye. They're generally leaders or authority figures in their field, or they run their own business, or, you know, they're very much kind of connected to government jobs or some kind of major company. As an example, someone with this placement could be a well-known public figure or a CEO, or, you know, somebody whose identity is tied to their career accomplishments. And they really thrive when they're at the center of attention when it comes to their professional life. But the moon in the 10th house is very different, because unlike the sun, the moon is a little bit more private. So the moon in the 10th house indicates that one's career or public image is influenced by your emotional needs or family background. There might be a public role that involves nurturing, caring for others, or emotions play a big role in your choices or public perception of you. I've seen okay, first of all, I've never seen a person with their moon in the 10th house that was not successful in what they do. Ever. Everyone I've ever met, even if they're a plumber or if they're a painter or if they're, you know, it doesn't matter. They're very well known for what they do. There may be many job changes in their life. They might be emotionally tied to what they do for work. They may also work for a family business. I have seen that. And I feel like there has to be a strong emotional connection to what they're doing professionally. It is possible that somebody with this placement might work in social services or become a public figure who advocates for family issues, or even running a charity or working with like public health. I have seen that with the moon in the 10th house. Now, with Mercury in the 10th house, the planet of communication, writing, teaching, or any form of information exchange, might mean that success for them comes through intellectual pursuits and that there is a talent for networking or public speaking. So an individual with Mercury in the 10th could be a journalist, they could be an author, they could be a public speaker, and any way where they're able to get that platform to really fully articulate their ideas and be known for what they're thinking or what they teach or what they're writing can really help them kind of climb the professional ladder. Now, if somebody were to have Venus in the 10th house, we're taking the planet of love and relationships and money and beauty and design and putting it in the 10th house of career, where their public life is somehow tied to Venus topics. Beauty, art, diplomacy, even relationships are central. They might, you know, have a relationship-based business. They might work in fashion. They might work in beauty. They might work with a partner of some kind. And success for them generally comes through charm, artistic talent, or fostering goodwill in the public eye. I have seen a number of artists and designers with this placement. I have seen people who work in public relations where their ability to kind of charm and, you know, create beauty is their path to success. Now, Mars in the 10th house is a strong placement. This is a person who is very determined to be successful. It's also somebody who can be very competitive. very driven, and sometimes kind of aggressive when it comes to their approach to career and public standing. But here there's a desire to conquer challenges, and success might come through competition, leadership, or some type of initiation of projects. I've seen people with Mars in the 10th house that work in the military. I've also seen people here who work in fitness. I've seen people here who are entrepreneurs as well, because it's got that energy of like leadership with Mars in the 10th. So, you know, someone with Mars in the 10th house might be also known for turning around failing companies or being a pioneer in a competitive industry like sports or the military. Now, Jupiter in the 10th house is going to expand and bring some kind of positive fortune when it comes to your career or your reputation. Jupiter here suggests a very fortunate career path. Generally, it's where, you know, that person achieves great heights. It could be in education, law, philosophy, any expansive field, higher education, publishing, teaching, training. This placement often brings a lot of recognition, people who get honors or are very influential when it comes to the public. I've seen a lot of professors with this placement. I've seen people who have a lot of career success. I always say it's always interesting to see people who have Jupiter in the 10th. Like, these are the people who don't really have to prepare for job interviews, you know, or these are people who just kind of, I'm not going to say they get lucky, but because they're really well-rounded and they're usually, you know, really good with authority figures and bosses and stuff, or they can be very kind of professional, they generally do very well. And I've seen people who have these placements who can become like a well-respected judge, university president, international diplomat, and they can have these jobs because their wisdom and optimism are key to their success when it comes to their 10th house. Now, Saturn in the 10th house, I feel like is very strong, but something I guess I should have said about Capricorn placements or 10th house placements in general is good things come to those who wait. Okay, so whether that's a Venus in Capricorn, finding love as you get older, or Saturn in the 10th house, your career really maturing as you get older. Saturn in the 10th house is a very strong placement. It's very similar to Saturn in Capricorn. It signifies a slow but steady climb to success. And this often involves, you know, hard work and overcoming obstacles, dealing with authority figures, nagging bosses, not really knowing what you want to be when you grow up. And then it evolves into, you know, really becoming this leader. And it comes with significant responsibilities, but it's something you learn how to master if you have Saturn in the 10th house. So this might be somebody who starts at the bottom of a large corporation and eventually rises to like a high executive position. And this can be through dedication, patience, and literally just like mastering their field, that they find that they're running the whole company, or that they have their own, you know, kind of company that they've been able to launch. But Uranus in the 10th house, I mean, hey, maybe they're an astrologer. Maybe they change jobs a lot. I mean, obviously, this is an unpredictable planet, so putting it in the 10th house means that likely they're going to opt for an unconventional career path or a desire to reform or innovate within their profession. So here, success comes from breaking norms and introducing new ideas. For example, they might be known as a revolutionary in their industry, maybe introducing eco-friendly business practices or a new tech startup, or just changing the way that we think about the work that we're doing, or maybe shifting something about the industry that they're in. Yes, I've seen people who practice astrology with this placement. I've seen people who change jobs a lot or don't want to feel constricted or limited by their job, or they, you know, want to work independently, or they want to work freelance. I've definitely seen that with Uranus in the 10th. Now, Neptune in the 10th is obviously a career that's supposed to be filled with imagination. It can be photography, it can be cinematography, it can be design, art, spirituality, you know, being of service to other people, working in hospitals, working in private places, some kind of international work. Somehow the public image is sometimes a little idealized. Sometimes you can be a little elusive, and there can be this risk of like disillusionment or scandal with this placement. It can also mean that there's something that's projected out into the world, but you might be very different, like kind of behind the scenes. I've seen this manifest quite a bit for people who work in the film industry, perhaps like a well-known director, you know, for films, or somebody who works in the healing arts, in therapy, or something kind of connected to spirituality. And, you know, their public role is something that's a little bit more like mystical and magical, or harder to define. And then finally, we've got Pluto in the 10th house. So we've got the planet of major transformation in the 10th house. So this is going to represent a person who's very intense when it comes to their ambition, transformation through power, working through power struggles with bosses and authority figures. It might mean that you have transformed your career, several times throughout your life, or that there is kind of working through a crisis when it comes to your career. And there's this deep dive for, control and influence. Individuals in this placement may be involved in, power politics or corporate takeovers. Maybe they're known for their ability to reshape organizations or to kind of navigate through surviving scandals. I've seen a lot of PR people with Pluto in the 10th house. I've seen a handful of people who work in like mortuary, work, who like work for a funeral home, or they're funeral directors, or I've seen people who work for like secret services. I've met people who also have professionally picked locks and been able to like decode things. People who work in metaphysical industries, psychics, intuitives, astrologers. I've seen people with those placements as well. I think what's interesting is that each planet in the 10th house, when you think about it, it has its unique flavor in how they approach their career, and it influences the path to success in a different way, and maybe the challenges or the opportunities, but it all still kind of symbolizes this connection to Capricorn, which is like, as we get older, this is what we become, or this is what our legacy is, or this is what we're kind of like known as. Anyway, just thought that was interesting. And then before we finish, I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about Saturn through the houses, because obviously I feel like one of the hottest topics in astrology is Saturn. Everybody wants to talk about Saturn, their Saturn return, obviously that's kind of always happens whenever we're coming up on Saturn kind of changing signs. So let's talk about Saturn in the houses. So we know that Saturn is about karma, responsibility, maturity, commitment. Eventually Saturn becomes something we're very good at, by the way. So just so you guys know, Saturn is not like the boogeyman. Saturn can be challenging, but usually our natal Saturn placement is something that we go from being slightly insecure about or not knowing how to do to fully evolving and kind of accepting and integrating, and it becomes something that we like master. So let's say you have Saturn in the first house, right? Which may be kind of similar to like Capricorn rising-ish. This means that Saturn in the first house, on an individual level, you're facing life challenges that really shape a serious, disciplined personality. You might struggle with self-esteem or feel the weight of responsibilities early on in your life, but this placement also fosters resilience, ambition, and maturity. These are the ones that I see that are kind of grumpy, or they might be a little bit more traditional with their style. As an example, someone might seem older in their years with Saturn in the first house, and they've taken on significant responsibilities early in life. This could be caring for siblings, managing family affairs, and this leads to a strong structured approach to their self-identity. Now, if you have Saturn in the second house, this means that you're putting Saturn in the house that's going to deal with finances, self-esteem, material goods, material possessions, and anything in regards to your resources. So there could be a more cautious Saturn approach to money with periods of scarcity, teaching the value of hard work and resourcefulness. So these are people who are generally very well known for their stringent financial planning. Perhaps they're coming from humble beginnings. They had to learn how to build a solid financial foundation through disciplined saving and investment strategies. These can be people who really know how to stick to a budget. They know how to be a minimalist. They've gone through periods of not having much, so they learn to appreciate what they have, and they work hard to become financially successful in life. Now, Saturn in the third house is putting Saturn in a house that's going to deal with communication, learning, local community interactions, siblings, vehicles, contracts. So there can be challenges in expressing yourself or learning, but with effort, you will learn that you actually excel in education or become a disciplined communicator, or you learn how to drive, or you become a master at moving, right? I think about when I've had transits in my third house, it's always been connected to movement. So moving can be a theme, or dealing with extended relatives and neighbors. As an example, an individual here, and I've seen this a couple times with Saturn placement in the third, might have struggled with speech or learning disabilities in your youth, but later you became a respected teacher or writer for your approach, to really slow and steady and having like a very methodical approach to teaching or writing, right? And you become really good at reading all of the details and analyzing everything and kind of seeing everything clearly. Now, if you have Saturn in the fourth, this is similar to having Saturn obviously in Cancer. So there's going to be some challenges having Saturn in the fourth house. This is a difficult placement. Saturn here points to a serious approach when it comes to home, family, and roots. There might be a sense of like duty towards family or challenges with parental figures. This can lead to a strong foundation or emotional reserve. I have found usually this is like a strict parent or there was some difficulty with family. I always call this the black sheep placement. So if you have if you have Saturn in the fourth house, you have to let me know if you feel like that. But usually some kind of karma revolving around family and connection to roots in your lineage, or issues with finding your own home or figuring out where home is, or a difficulty with a relative. But someone with this placement, yeah, they may have had a strict upbringing, with a parent who had a demanding job, or they taught them very early about responsibility. And later on, that matures as them becoming the rock of the family, or focusing on building a stable home or being able to kind of provide for themselves. Although there is some emotional challenges that kind of come with that. Now, if you have Saturn in the fifth house, you're putting Saturn in the house that deals with creativity, romance, and self-expression. So with that comes lessons of discipline, patience, and restriction in these areas. So it can be delays in love or creative output, but when it's expressed appropriately, there are often high quality, enduring, lasting relationships, well-behaved children, self-employment, taking calculated risks, learning about like the market. So a person here might not pursue hobbies or romance until later in life, but when they do, they could excel in a disciplined art form like classical music, or have a very committed romantic relationship. This might be people also who have some issues revolving around self-love, feeling confident, some challenges or delays with dating, or might feel like there's a lot of responsibility that comes with children. And then Saturn in the sixth house, you're putting Saturn in the house of work and daily routines and areas where Saturn's influence is felt. And this leads to a strong work ethic for one. I think attention to detail and possibly health challenges that teach you self-care. Now, at least having a malefic in the sixth house, I think they do better, to be honest with you, in this house than other houses. Saturn's going to make sure that you're cleaning up after yourself, you're taking care of your health, you're going to the gym, you're following a routine, but it's also about structuring your work and your lifestyle. So people who have this placement are generally known for their meticulous work habits and perhaps advance in a field like engineering or even healthcare, where they're able to handle routine and responsibility, and those traits really shine. Maybe it's also about having assistance when it comes to work and like working with like team members, and obviously learning a lot about health and healing and wellness, and maybe going through your own kind of healing journey and then wanting to help other people. Now, Saturn in the seventh house, we think about, Saturn obviously does very well when it's in Libra. It's very well placed there. This is about, exalting in relationships and commitments and love and anything when it comes to diplomacy. So believe it or not, Saturn does pretty well in the seventh house. I feel like this is about relationships, both business and personal, where Saturn's lessons are learned. And often this involves commitment. Sometimes it can be delays, like delays with getting married, or a significant age difference in relationships can come about here. And it teaches us about true partnership and responsibility, and being able to endure some of the challenges of relationships and staying committed, or a karmic relationship, or maybe a karmic relationship with a business partner, or even with a therapist. Seventh house could be your therapist, your astrologer. So I think about Saturn in the seventh, karma with relationships, but maybe even marrying later in life, or choosing a partner who brings stability where the relationship itself requires hard work to maintain, but it leads to a stronger, more enduring bond, right? And if you have Saturn in the eighth house, this is placing Saturn in a house that deals with transformation, Shared resources, intimacy, teaching lessons about trust, control, and the deeper aspects of human connection or loss. So challenging house. Saturn already brings the karma, but going through an 8th house, which has these energies connected to Pluto and Scorpio, means that the lessons are going to be around change and how do we adapt to change and how we grieve and how we let go and how it brings new things in. I feel like Saturn in the 8th definitely can also be a late bloomer. There can be some feeling a little blocked maybe when it comes to, dating or their sexual life. They may also deal with like inheritance, debts, or significant life changes like death or rebirth of self, leading to profound lessons about letting go and like the power of transformation. And then if we have Saturn in the 9th house, this means that Saturn's in the house that's going to be challenging you or bringing up karma or boundaries revolving around your belief systems, higher education, your travel experiences, and also leading to a more structured or serious approach to philosophy, religion, or higher learning. I've seen Saturn in the 9th house manifest as some really prolific writers and authors, some amazing teachers, gurus. I've also seen this where people in transit, where people get really serious about their belief system or going back to college and getting a degree or, traveling and like seeing the world. And as an example, an individual with Saturn in the 9th, they might pursue a PhD after years of work and become an authority in their academic field, or they might travel late in life for work or for study, gaining wisdom through experience. Now, we know Saturn in Capricorn is strong. We know Saturn in the 10th house is strong. It's really going to be playing on that hard work, patience, determination, and responsibility. And it all obviously leads to recognition and more authority. But Saturn in the 11th house also does well because Saturn has connections traditionally to both Capricorn and Aquarius. So when we do the Aquarius episode next month, I'm going to focus more on Uranus. But Saturn in the 11th house is bringing a planet that's going to deal with goals and karma and also responsibility to the house of social groups, to friends and aspirations, and an area where Saturn is teaching us lessons about commitments and realistic goals and sometimes isolation or disillusionment with social ideals. These are the people who feel like a little bit of like an outcast, or maybe that it's difficult to make friends or that it's kind of socially awkward to be out there, but eventually evolve and learn that they want to participate in society. They want to make friends. They want to start networks and groups, that they can actually be amazing when it comes to connecting with other people. And they can oftentimes be, leaders of organizations that have major long-term impacts on society in a good way. Sometimes it's environmental groups, sometimes it's, political affiliations, but they can also feel a sense of loneliness or have fewer, fewer but more profound relationships is what I have found with this placement. And then finally, we have Saturn in the 12th house. So this is kind of like a similar vibe to what we're dealing with Saturn in Pisces right now. Saturn in the 12th house is dealing with the subconscious. It's about solitude. This is also a house that deals with endings and some kind of completion. It does indicate a life where inner work and facing fears or dealing with hidden enemies or karma is central. That is part of the lesson. It can also be about a meditation practice, about consciously creating boundaries, emotional boundaries, and boundaries when it comes to our self-undoing patterns and habits and becoming aware of them. And I think someone with Saturn in the 12th, they may have a career in psychology or spiritual guidance. This can also be where they help others confront their fears or work in institutions like hospitals, prisons, working in jobs where you have to understand the human psyche through hardship and through like sacrifice. And sometimes I've seen people here who also go into some kind of nonprofit or charity kind of related work. Okay. So that's Capricorn in a nutshell. I hope you guys found this helpful and insightful in the midst of this Capricorn season. But let me know, what planets do you guys have in Capricorn or in the 10th house? How does any of this correlate or materialize for you? And you guys can feel free to give feedback. I love to read these kind of comments on some of this stuff because it's so interesting to see how people don't really know a lot about their chart, and then they'll listen to certain signs and certain houses that get activated. And they're like, whoa, I didn't realize I had some of these personality traits. So it can be super enlightening and really helpful. Once again, if you guys want to see more about me, my astro courses, or if you want to book a personal reading with me, click the links below in my description and go to beyondtheveiltarot.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter. That way you're alerted as to when I have new videos and content and other things like courses and webinars that are going to be coming out this year. And if you guys need a 2025 calendar, I'm your girl. Check out the calendars while you're there so I can help you manage your time with a personal digital calendar or a printed 2025 astro calendar. Now, I will be back on Friday. We're going to be here Friday evening. We're going to be doing live astrology readings for this up and coming full moon in Cancer. It's a hot one, so make sure you join me. I'll post the link in the community tab. You guys can check in, and if you want to reserve your time to get a reading for the full moon, please do so. I'd love to hang out with you on Friday. With that being said, enjoy the rest of your guys' week. I will see you all very soon, and we'll be back next month with the Aquarius profile. Until then, take care.